The comma. This is a very important concept that we need to cover. We'll talk about this, of course, more in class. We'll go over exercises, but the comma is a very important concept for you to get, because grammar and punctuation will cost you points, okay? And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. The traffic sign. I compare a comma to a traffic sign. A lot of times traffic signs, they tell us different things, right? We know as drivers, when we take our driver's test, we learn what different things mean. Yield, slow down, wait for the other car, right? Also, a lot of times you're driving and you'll see a slow sign telling you to slow down and to pause, right? If you're yielding. Also, consider a traffic light. When it turns yellow, it's cautioning you, right? It's telling you to slow down. Commas do the same thing. They're signs. They're telling us something. And what they're telling us is that without them, you're going to jumble up your writing. And if you're writing for someone to read, and that someone in this case is going to be me, it's going to sound jumbled. Just as if we didn't have any traffic laws. It'd be a convoluted mess, for sure. And same thing with writing. If you don't write with commas correctly, your work will be a convoluted mess. All right? And there's 4 basic usages of commas, and we're going to talk about each one of them in this video. Coordinating conjunctions we have already talked about, and we went into great detail, I believe, in the run-on sentence PowerPoint, and I'll refer you back to that if you need a refresher on them. But it's talking about the importance of commas. This is if you don't get anything else about commas, I promise you, I'm not exaggerating. This one concept would lower your grade or has the possibility of raising it a letter. I've seen it happen time and time again. I don't know if it's just, I think it's careless errors. And when students, they fail to proof their paper, they know they can grasp the concept on a test or individual sentences when we go over them, and they understand it, but they fail to find their mistakes about coordinating conjunctions when they proof their paper. And at 3 points apiece, that adds up over the semester. And I have had countless students that it's really, really frustrating to me, because all you had to do is just get them to proof their paper for coordinating conjunctions, and I know without a doubt it would have been a letter grade difference. So I can't stress it enough, and it's so easy. This is not rocket science here. If you know how to find a subject and a verb, you can do this concept. So, because as we've said before, a coordinating conjunction we have right here, it says it joins 2 independent sentences. And you need a comma when that occurs. If you've got 2 independent sentences like we have here in this example, the minutes would pass, and then suddenly Einstein would stop pacing as his face relaxed into a gentle smile. What's the subject and the verb? If you're proofing your paper, the first thing you're going to do, if you wanted to be mindful of coordinating conjunction mistakes, look through there and see if you have a sentence with one of these words, one of these A-B fontsies, and or nor, for, so, but, yet. So, well, I do have them. All right, well, then the second thing you're going to have to do is find your subjects in the verb. All right, if you have, like this sentence, you have the minutes would pass. Minutes would pass. That is a complete sentence. That's an independent clause, right? It stands alone. But then you've got this other sentence behind it this other group of words, I should say, you got to determine, okay, is it or is it not an independent sentence? What you got to do? You got to find your subject and your verb. What is it? Einstein would stop. All right, that's, you've got a sentence here, and because of that, and you have a coordinating conjunction, you have to have a comma before the coordinating conjunction. Look at the second sentence. He snapped the locker door open and kicked his shoes off without stopping. There's no comma in that sentence. Is that correct? Yes, it's correct. Because why? You've got he snapped the locker door open. All right? That, if you did not have that and connecting another part to this independent sentence, because you do have one here, right? He snapped. Subject, he. Verb, snapped. Then you have and that's joining, but now let those, okay, to make sure that this is correct and we don't need a comma, we have to look and we have to say, okay, do I have a subject and a verb in this group of words? Kicked his shoes off without stopping. No, that's not a sentence because it doesn't tell me. It's an incomplete sentence. So this is a dependent clause, rather. And so the rule is, remember, you have to have two independent. If you had inserted, he snapped the locker door open and Philip kicked his shoes off, then you would need a comma. But we don't know who Philip is. He's not named here, right, in this sentence. So there's no comma. All right? Is that cut and dry? So there's really, it's so senseless not to get those sentences correct. Continue with coordinating conjunctions. Here you have a series of coordinating conjunctions in a sentence. The same rule applies. It doesn't matter if you have one or if you have three, such as this one. So you have, I chose to follow in the footsteps of my unconventional Aunt Kathy, comma. You have comma but and comma and. All of those are independent sentences, and they have a coordinating conjunction that follows or comes before them. Okay. The second usage that we'll talk about is introductory elements. Introductory elements have to do with adverbs. So, I know that word adverb, but I never was good at English, and I couldn't find them years ago, and how am I going to find them now? Well, the thing about adverbs, if you'll just remember, adverb clauses they're before independent sentences. Again, you got to look for those subjects and the verbs, but if you have an adverb clause that is before an independent sentence, you're going to need to put a comma. Such as this example, when you write, comma, you make a sound in the reader's head. All right? You make a sound in the reader's head, that's independent, right? When you write, that's an adverb clause. What's an adverb? Do you remember this definition from years ago? They tell us how, when, where, to what extent, and why. Okay? And they describe, modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. All right? When is a condition when you write. Okay, so you need a comma after that little clause. Look at commas are usually unnecessary when the adverb clause follows the independent clause. Okay. I think we've talked about subordinate conjunctions. I think I gave a list. If I didn't, tell me and I'll give you a list. But adverb clauses begin with subordinate conjunctions many times. Okay, those words such as after, if, because, although, those are subordinated conjunctions. And if they begin the sentence, you need a comma. But in this sentence, I should have no difficulty establishing my citizenship in the tribe because my grandmother's name can be found on the doll's roll. There's no comma in the sentence because the adverb clause is at the end. Now, had this sentence been written as this, because my grandmother's name can be found on the doll's roll, I should have no difficulty establishing my citizenship in the tribe, period. Then you would need a comma. You would need a comma after roll, because if you rewrote it and put that at the beginning, you've got an adverb clause at the beginning of the sentence. We'll go over that some more if we need to, and we'll go over it extensively. Before we move on, one more thing about adverbs. Remember I said they tell us how and when. Well, when is time. If you think of them in terms of time, words such as before, of course, when is obviously one. Before, when, later, since, as, while, until, all those words, they have to do with time, right? You can use them in a sentence that when you're talking about modifying something to talk about time, right? So if you're beginning a sentence with an adverb, with the word like that, that's associated with time, there's another way of remembering. I've got an adverb clause here, so I'm going to need a comma, okay? But the main thing is remember, if you've got an independent sentence following a group of words that's not a sentence, then you need to check. You need to go through this process that we just talked about. Is it have I got a subordinate conjunction that's an adverb clause? Is it a time element? So I've got something at the beginning of the sentence and I need a clause. Another thing here, prepositional phrases, that they introduce sentences. So if I have one of them, I'm gonna need to put a comma as well. Prepositional phrases and introductory words require a comma after them if they begin a sentence. The example here, from the deck, I could not see my brother, but I could see my mother facing the ship. Okay, so from the deck is prepositional phrase. I encourage you, if you're not familiar with your prepositional phrases, maybe it's been a while before you've looked at the list, get in your text and just review over them so you can pick them out, because that's also something that's so easily missed, and it costs points unnecessarily when you're proofing your paper. Okay, so always also remember that the comma, if you have a prepositional phrase, they also can have a series, just like we talked about the coordinating conjunctions. You have a series of prepositional phrases. In this case, you put a comma after the last one. You don't separate the phrases. For example, if I had from the deck, outside in the rain, the comma would go after rain. It would not go after deck, because I have two prepositional phrases back to back. It doesn't matter if you have 2, 1, or 5 in a series at the beginning of the sentence. It goes after the last prepositional phrase in at the beginning of the sentence. Okay. Then the introductory elements here of we said the introductory words appeared in the beginning of the slide. It says furthermore, comma. Those are words that if you have at the beginning of the sentence, you need a. They look very much like parenthetical words, and I think we've gone over them. Words like, for instance, moreover, however, and so they need a comma at the beginning if they're at the beginning of the sentence. Items in a series is the third concept that we want to talk about. 3 or more parallel elements you need a comma. The melon was pink, sweet, and juicy. Notice there's 2 commas here. Notice in this next sentence, there's only one. It completely changed how the writer was talking, right? The point. Words, phrases, and clauses in a series require commas. For example, a pet should be affectionate, comma, trusting, comma, obedient, and intelligent. They're in the middle of a sentence, but they still require a comma or commas if they're in a series, right? We'll definitely have more of these. This is important because you can someone gives you if you're writing down the menu of what you're going to have for dinner and you misplace a comma, you can have the wrong dish, and somebody will show up ready for chicken salad, and you put chicken comma and salad. That's 2 separate dishes rather than chicken salad if you didn't separate it with a comma. So you see how tricky that can be? Items in the series continued if you have coordinate adjectives. The rule is 2 or more adjectives that modify the same noun or pronoun. It is a dirty, lonely, haunting room. 2 or more. The rule. It is a dirty, lonely, haunting waiting room. You don't put one there, right? Why? Well, find out. That's a question. Find out and be able to tell me, okay? Non-restrictive and parenthetical. We talked about parenthetical a while ago a little bit. Let's talk about these non-essential information clauses that you might have. And they're about nouns and pronouns. And sometimes you have appositives. Some of you may be saying, I know that word appositive, but I can't for life of me remember what it is, and that's okay. What the best thing that you can do is just simply remember non-essential information about a noun. Look at these examples. I spoke with Marilyn Greer, comma, who manages the bank. Now, that is, you need a comma there because that is that's specific information. Or is that specific information? Well, read the next example there and see how it is written. I spoke to the woman who managed the bank. Well, you don't need a comma because why? Do you see the point? You have to have the comma here because it identifies the manager of the bank, Marilyn Greer. All right. It doesn't matter if she's a bank manager because it doesn't change the fact that you spoke to Marilyn Greer. And that's the point. Same thing here. We climbed Mount Rainier. You've got a comma here, which is over 15,000 feet high. We climbed a mountain that is over 15,000 feet high. And a comma, it doesn't matter. You climbed a mountain. This is telling which one. All right, this one doesn't. This is specific. Comma, right? Look at this one. Even Zeke, my friend, let me down. Now, my friend is specific. It's telling me even Zeke. That's a noun, right? What was the definition? Non-essential information about a noun or pronoun. It doesn't matter if he's my friend. He still let me down. That's back over here. That's non-essential, right? This is the definition. It's supplying additional information that's not essential. Okay? Think in those terms. Even Zeke let me down. It doesn't matter if you took out my friend. It doesn't matter if he's your friend or not. He let you down. Again, the definition, non-essential information about a noun or pronoun, and it is supplying additional information, okay? That's when we're putting the comma in. My friend. Doesn't matter, but it's in there because it's additional. It's identifying who he is. Doesn't change anything that he let me down, but the sentence is written that he's my friend, so it goes with commas. All right, we're going to talk more about that. This non-restrictive comma rule. And you have language. You have parentheticals here. A lot of you'll see semicolons, and if you've got them in the middle of the sentence, okay. If they're not at the beginning, you have a semicolon, comma. And whereas the examples in the last, we talked about parenthetical, you had, I think the example was furthermore, I think maybe up here. Yeah, furthermore, comma. Down here, you have then is not the beginning of the sentence. You got that semicolon, comma. Sets the tone of our language, then sets the tone of our society. Much of the court, and semicolon thus, because you've got this parenthetical in the middle. All right. Now, we're going to talk about these some more, and you have some exercises to complete. And this is just a general overview of it. Get in your book. The rules are more specific. There's also a few more rules that you should know. Basic information about dates, when to put a comma, address, when you're writing a letter, formal address, things like that. And be sure to look at those numbers, things like that. Look over your comma chapter. This is very, very important. Read over the rules, and again, we'll go over it and we'll clear up any trouble that you may be having.